Hello and welcome to this first introductory podcast. I'm spiritual medium Shannon and this is Spiritual Sharing. For those of you who would be interested in checking out a little bit more of my socials, you can do so by heading to Instagram or YouTube and following Spiritual Medium Shannon. Or you can head over to my website where I will provide a link for that in the description sections of this podcast. With all of that said, what you can expect from this very new, very raw podcast, Spiritual Sharing, is just that. This will be a place where I will share a lot of my spiritual knowledge, my spiritual journey, what I'm currently learning, and my experiences. With all that said, I hope you enjoy Spiritual Sharing with me, Spiritual Medium Shannon. Okay, so to get started, I thought that I would just share with you all a little insight into how I have come to begin the practice of being a psychic medium. Basically, I have always been interested and connected with the spiritual world, even as a child. You know, a lot of the things that I thought that I was doing, a lot of the activities I thought I was, playing with. I thought I was doing mostly just that, just playing around. I knew that there was more to the spiritual realm in terms of it was very much a physical practice for many people. But just for myself, it was just something that I was interested in, a little hobby. So I can get a little bit more into what it was that I would do as a kid, perhaps in another podcast. But basically, I've come to realize now as a medium and the way that I conduct readings and connecting with spirit, that basically I was channeling. I didn't realize it at the time. But looking back, I definitely knew that there was more going on than meets the eye. And to be quite honest, I thought I was just a little bit magic a lot of the time. Whereas now I've come to realise that there was a little bit more at play than I was fully aware of at the time. So from then on, I did experience a few instances with spirit in the manifested form. But again, being young and not understanding and being afraid, I basically learnt how to block it out. And I know that there's many in the field that I have read about or watched on YouTube or whatever, seen on TV that may have done the same thing. A lot don't, but there are a few out there that sort of don't understand, and not understanding something often perpetuates fear, and the fear is what I used, I believe, in terms of being able to shut it all down. It wasn't until my grandfather passed away, and that was in 2009, I believe. Just trying to remember when that was. Whenever it was a while ago now. It wasn't until he passed away that I began to sense. It wasn't as visual as it was when I was a child, but I did begin to get those feelings of sensing and just knowing when spirit was around. And I knew that it was my family, because this would sort of get deeper and deeper when my second grandfather passed away. This sort of feeling would intensify, and this knowing that it was them did intensify. And basically, I think I'll go into a little bit more detail in another podcast about what that feels like and that knowing. Because basically, if there's one thing that I've learned about psychics, mediums, the full shebang, is how a lot of how this happens for people is quite general, but how it's experienced and how it's felt and how it's seen and engaged with can be very different from psychic to psychic, from medium to medium. And I'll also go into a little bit more about the definition of psychic and the definition of medium and all that jazzy bit down the track. So getting back on track, basically I would know that who was around me was family, was related. I still didn't quite understand it. I knew that that's what was going on, but I didn't think I had any control over anything. I didn't realise that I could dictate a lot more than I did. To be fair, I wasn't really dictating anything at all. I would simply be like, look, I know it's you, just go away, leave me alone, you're freaking me out, or whatever it was, and they would leave. It wasn't until I went through a bit of a breakup and was again living by myself, that when I moved into this house, my son and I moved into this new home. I loved the home. It was a great home, beautiful home. I felt very comfortable there. You know, after so many years of living with somebody else to then living again on your own, I did feel comfortable. I felt secure. But I began to feel that presence, that energy around again. Only when the energy was there and present, it was different. It didn't feel familiar. There wasn't that sense of knowing that it was somebody that had cared for me or somebody that I had cared about. It didn't have that same feeling about it. And when I would do my usual, look, you know, I'm not comfortable, leave me alone kind of thing, the feeling would remain. It wouldn't go away. And it was almost like, you know, I don't have to listen to you. That kind of impression. I didn't feel unsafe, and I didn't feel unsafe for my son, and if that was the case, I would have been out of there. But I didn't feel unsafe. It was just unfamiliar territory for me. It was just like something that I hadn't experienced before, not as an adult. And basically things in the home began to heighten and elevate, and what I mean by that is physical objects would be manipulated with. My son's toys would be moved about as we were both just sitting in the same room. I did begin to really struggle with sleep. I could not sleep in my room. I just didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel alone of a night time. I never felt fearful. It was just I didn't understand what was happening, and I couldn't familiarize myself with any other experiences as an adult, because what had been coming forward for me and surrounding me was loved ones. And this was a new energy. This was a different energy, and I didn't understand much, if or anything, about it. It wasn't until I was asleep one night and I woke up. I always was constantly tossing and turning of a night time. Most of the time I would sleep in the lounge room with the light on, just to try and get some sleep. And on this particular night I woke up and there was a lady just staring at me, basically. I was startled enough to pull the covers over my head like a scared little kid. And when I pulled the covers back down again, she was at the foot of my bed, the base of my bed, just standing there, just looking. Anyways, I sort of flicked the telly on, rolled over and went back to sleep eventually. But I was quite shaken up because that was like blatantly, blindingly obvious that there was somebody else around me that and in my home that I knew nothing about. So from there, I sort of sought out those within the spiritual occupation for help. There's a local medium in my area, I won't name who it is, and I invited her and a group of her students to come through the home just to see what was going on, because I couldn't explain it all myself. I was in no way sort of that well connected to realize the control that I could have had and the conversations that I could have had. So they came through and basically hit the nail on the head with describing this lady that I seen to a T, and just reassured me and said like that she's just connected to the house. She's curious about the little fella and the toys and just the new energy in the house. She meant no harm whatsoever. It was more just a curiosity that we were there kind of thing. So that did put my mind at ease. I did then do a smudging in the home, and I just sort of set my intentions for what was okay and what wasn't okay. And basically from there I did feel a bit of a weight lift. I felt lighter in the home. I felt more comfortable in the home. It did still take me a little while to readjust, but I no longer had that sense of fear from not knowing what was happening, basically. So from that experience, at the time of the medium coming through with the group, she sort of just said like, you should look into a few more areas of mediumship and work out, because she said to me that, you know, you can have control over this, you can dictate and set boundaries for yourself, and, you know, have a bit more of an understanding. And that was really the big push I think that I needed to really start researching. And to be fair, I'm not too sure why I didn't in the past, even when it was my family. I think it was just that I knew who it was, and I'm not even sure why, to be honest, I didn't start looking into it more back then. I think the comfort of knowing who it was enough to maybe not pique my interest enough. And again, this is something that I did experience as a child. So being that it wasn't that same sort of like immense fear, I think that I was a little bit more numb to wanting to look into it anymore. I've always been interested in mediums and mediumship and psychics and the full spiritual shebang, but it wasn't something that I ever considered that I would do or would be able to do. I now realise how naive that was, but but that's just the way that it was. I never thought that would be somewhere I would be headed. I now know that that's somewhere I've been meaning and needing to head for a long time, but that's by the by, and we'll talk about that again later. So basically what I did from there is researched as much as I could. I've watched so many YouTube videos, and I know for many that may even seem a little bit of a cliche, but there is so much information available just by those who've experienced wanting to share their knowledge, and I really am grateful for that, because that's a big part of where my spiritual journey really took off from. It was watching YouTube videos and learning to trust my intuition and be guided by my intuition, and that was a big one for me. And once I started to do that, I really realized that this is very much what I am meant to do. That became quite clear. I've always gone through life sort of, chopping away at what it is that I'm supposed to do and what my calling is, and I've, doing uni and doing, involving myself in work-related aspects, and trying to merge hobbies into my work life to see if that sort of would ignite my passion towards what it is that I wanted to do, and I would sort of get to the end of my goal with whatever it was to do with work, and it wouldn't be enough. It wouldn't quite fill the void of what it was that I thought that I was supposed to be doing, and mediumship definitely fills that void. I definitely have passion reignited in my life through mediumship and psychic intuition and all the nooks and crannies that go along with that. So I'm very grateful for that. So basically from there I have just been learning all I can and researching all I could. I have gone and spoken with some mediums in my area. I've reached out to mediums in my area for advice and guidance, and with various questions that I have. For the most part, I've been met with some pretty good response, and if there's one thing I've learned is that while many can be a bit weary, because I do now realise that as soon as you label yourself a psychic medium, or I imagine any within the field can probably vouch, you're somewhat there are no boundaries, put it that way. It's sort of like people will just pop up out of nowhere with questions and really anticipate that you'll get back to them with tremendous wisdom, and while that would be great and I would love to be able to do that, it's not quite how it works. So I do appreciate those that have helped me along the way to push me further and answer questions and help me to develop my own sort of little, I guess, spiritual book on, or spiritual what are they called? Workbook? No. Instruction manual. Little spiritual instruction manual. And that has helped me too. From there, and from all of that, basically there was only really one thing left to do, and that was to practice, and that was to start the process of offering readings, free readings to family, and I say family, but to be fair, I sort of don't really like doing readings for my family. I love it when they get something from it, but being a medium and being associated with people that it does make it quite hard. I might even make a little podcast about that, but again, that's down the road. So aside from family, I reached out on Instagram for Anybody wishing to receive a free reading to reach out to me. I did start uploading mediumship messages, videos to YouTube, and that was just basically where whatever was coming through, I would just hear it, see it, whatever, and pop that into a video and upload it. For a while there, I did them as an afterthought, not as an afterthought, but I did them after the fact. I would sort of connect, take notes, then record, and then upload, and I have just recently started to change that, and record while I'm in the process of getting the information. I just find that what comes through there is clearer, and I don't have time to embellish, because that is a big one. You don't want to embellish, you don't want to add anything extra. It's sort of like if you're shown a wooden ruler, then you should say it's a wooden ruler. You shouldn't be like, I had one in high school and it was wood and it had yellow lines, and no, it's just a wooden ruler. And then, with all that being said, so the first reading that I did, I was very anxious, I was very nervous, I felt very exposed, I felt very fearful for the fact that I would be presenting information to somebody potentially who was struggling or grieving, and the pressure of that was quite intimidating. But at the same time, I'd built myself up enough to know that this is something that I could do, and there really was nothing else for me to do but put myself out there and try. And so I did. I finished the reading, sent everything away, and spent the next probably 12 hours it might have been. I'm just trying to think how long. It might not have even been that long, but however long it was, I was pretty much in agony. And that is, if there's one thing that you should know about me, that is I am not a very patient person. So I was really anxiously awaiting the response. When the response came in, I was shocked, to say the least, but at the same time, it's so hard to explain the feeling of just blatant realization that this is something that you can do, and the feeling of helping another person in such a way that is so just organic. It was a pretty life-changing experience, and apart from having my son, I don't think I've had many of those. So it was really profound, and something inside of me in that moment just sort of clicked, like, this is the thing. This is the thing that you are supposed to be doing. This is what will bring you, and what does bring you happiness and just grounding, and it just felt really, really good. And of course, as with most things we humans do, not long after that came a wave again of self-doubt and just denial, ignorance. I was, what are the chances of being able to do that again? I thought they were slim to none, but basically since then, and that was only back in, might have been December, it might have been January, it wasn't very long ago. But since then I couldn't even tell you how many readings. I've done so many, and I've just been cramming them in, apart from the week there where I was burnt out and couldn't do anything. But all of them have been successful. All of them have further validated that this is something I can do, and this is something that I want to do for people. I do see it being a big part of my life from now on, and I'm really excited about that. So I think that's pretty much it. That's basically, up until now, a sort of skimmer view of my spiritual journey and how I've come to wear the label of a spiritual psychic medium. I will leave it here. I think I'm pretty happy that that's everything. I'm more than willing to accept any questions from you guys, and you can again reach me via either Instagram or YouTube is probably the best place. You can email me at spiritualmediumshannon@outlook.com with any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Head to my website. Again, I will provide that link, and reach out, have a look over what's available there, and I'd be happy to provide any readings for anybody that would like and feel drawn enough to me to want one. Otherwise, I aim to provide a podcast once a week. If there are any particular topics, if there are any questions, shoot them through. If you have any particular topics that you would like me to discuss, I am open to suggestions. This podcast is still a little baby, as am I. So I'm open to all kinds of feedback, all kinds of questions, and I look forward to the next podcast. Okay, if you have made it this far along, thank you very, 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 very much, and I will see you again soon.